Hello again. As you've been seeing, we've been getting on with a bit of painting. There's a few bits of painting to do. It's going to be done in batches, so you've sort of seen one bit go through. There will be more. You will see the results in due course, but warming up in the paint booth at the moment, we have some of the bigger frame components, so it's all moving along all right on that. So while I'm doing that, the other job to look at is the petrol tank, because that's one that will need a little bit of work done by somebody, not me, because I'm not artistic enough to put the lining and things on it, so that will go to someone else, and therefore it needs to go there as quick as it can. So really I need to get a move on with painting that as well. So the first thing you do with the petrol tank is really make sure it doesn't have any leaks in it. So you can do that by either pressure testing it or filling it with fluid and looking for the spots of wet and so on. And or you can sort of, like I say, pressure test it by putting it in water or putting a small amount of pressure in and then going over it with soapy water to see whether there's any bubbles appear. I go for the fill it with some form of liquid, and I do it because I'm also cleaning it at the same time. So what I've done with this one is I've sort of done it in two parts, and I'll explain why. So one petrol tank, there we go, beautiful wedge shaped petrol tank. And this tank is quite common for a 20s bike in that it has two components. So in the front is an oil tank, and in the back is a petrol tank. Now practically that's because the oil tank is actually a separate tank that is set into the petrol tank. So the oil tank is set into the petrol tank, and it only has access from the top. So if you look at the top, you have the oil filler here, and then here is the outlet. This would have a Best & Lloyd drip feed pump on it, so you pressurize the pump, it sort of draws oil in and holds it against a spring, and there is a valve that regulates the amount that you drip into the engine cases from that, just enough to keep it lubed, not enough and you'll nip it up, and if you put too much in you'll blow smoke and your bike will stop because your plug oil's up. Realistically it's quite straightforward, but the oil tank only access from the top. The petrol tank, this is the filler for the petrol tank, and then there is a single outlet on the bottom for petrol. So great. Now I noticed that in this tank, in there, it was really sludgy. So while checking for leaks, obviously I've used some solvent, cleaned it out, and then the third lot of solvent came out like this. Now, you know, it does look like you've been on Barocca, but if you notice in the bottom, if that happened when you'd had Barocca, it would hurt a lot. This is rust particles in the bottom of there. It's settled out a little bit. The first two lots that came out were absolutely thick black, so there was a lot of detritus in there to come out. So that's done, and it's pretty good, and there was no signs of leakage on the outside. The petrol tank, well, what I put in that is phosphoric acid. It's a dilute form of phosphoric acid. It will find rust and it will turn it into an oxide, which you can then get out of the tank, so it cleans up the inside of the tank nicely. It's quite dilute, so what you'll find is that any leaks or weeps in the tank will normally show itself by doing that. So I try and kill two birds with one stone by using that process. And so we did. We filled it up with phosphoric acid, and this was the result. I don't know if you can see that, but we've got a decent leak. It's coming from this far corner. So what I propose to do is repair it by wiping solder into it. I think it's probably been some sort of knock in the tank, or some part where it's been soldered, some of the flux has come out or something like that, but we'll give it a good wire brush, clean the surface up, get some baker's tinning on it, wipe some solder into it very carefully. I'll probably do that with a flame rather than with an iron, but we'll see. And then hopefully that'll plug the leak and we're back into back into sort of checking it for other leaks in case there's something that was there that we didn't know about or didn't see this time, and then we can have a proper look at the tank and get it filled and primed and undercoat painted, so we can then get it lined up and stickers on it and so on, get it looking something nice for the bike. So without further ado, we're going to get it onto the wire brush and try and clean up that corner. See you at the wire brush wheel. I don't know whether you can see this or not, but we got a hole here, 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 here. This has been a bit thin. I'm going to just press it in a bit there by press it in, I mean hit it with a little hammer so that it's an in rather than out, and then flow some solder into it. Fingers crossed it'll work okay. If not, there'll just be a mess of solder on the floor, so watch this space. Bit of wire wool. And then we use some Baker's number 3 soldering oil, soldering fluid, and a low flame. So a bit of temperature into this, just a little bit. Right. Switch that off. The solder just started to run there. That just takes any more oxidization off, so that's that. And rub a bit of flux into there as well, and then we shouldn't be far off ready to go. So this is a very delicate operation. A little bit of heat. There we go. Not the neatest, but with a little bit of sanding, that'll come back flush and we should be leak free. So we'll just give it a little bit of a wait and we'll see what happens. So, well, what I've done here is I've finished the soldering. I've filed it and sanded it a bit. It's not pretty, I'll be honest about that, but I am no expert at this. I'm sure there's other people who would do it other ways, and they are welcome to share it in the comments. I value anybody's opinion as long as mine's always right, and this should show you that at least it doesn't leak. Well, it doesn't leak there. It might well prove to leak somewhere else. Today we have an assistant. It's Bobby. Say hello, Bobby.
Hello.
You're supposed to say hello, Bobby.
Hello, Bobby.
Well done. Right, he's going to help me pressure test the tank. Off we go. Don't want very much in. It needs holding up. Right. Take it off. It's definitely where we thought.
That's a leak.
Yeah. And I think it's coming from this.
It's round it.
It's where that is
Underneath.
sweated in. It's lifted.
It's underneath, between
Yeah.
the two, isn't it?
Well folks, it's been a day of ups and downs really. I'm not sure how I feel at the moment, but the situation is, having repaired the first hole I found in the fuel tank, another one became apparent, as you saw from some of the pictures. Now, it's in a really awkward spot, and you'll have also seen we've had a couple of goes at trying to repair it, and so far it hasn't taken. I'm not going to give up, but the options left open are sort of a full repair, taking the whole thing to bits again, which is something I'd like to avoid. And even with a repair, I may need to go down the path of putting a liner inside, a resin liner inside the tank. I'm sort of thinking about this because I think that the inside of the tank mightn't be in as good condition as we'd hoped. It probably was 40 years ago, and now it's a lot thinner than it was. So I think that might just be a prudent thing to do. The thing that's stopping me just putting a liner in at this stage was that because the leak is on one of the mounting points on the tank, tightening it up will move the mounting point within the resin once it's set, and will probably cause it to leak straight away. So if nothing else, we have to sort of firm up where that is, even if it doesn't fix the leak, then put the resin in and we should be okay. Now, this is a pain. The resin takes a week to do, really, well, a couple of days to do, but you've got to let it sort of harden off properly. I don't know what the crossover time between that and painting it would be. We might be able to speed it up by warming it up in the paint room. I don't know. I'm not an expert at that by any stretch of the imagination. I will have to speak to people who are, and we'll see where that leads us. But the tank is probably the most time hungry bit on this bike, because it needs to be painted, it then needs to be lined after a little bit of a wait, then after a bit of a wait again it needs to be lacquered. So there is a few weeks of waiting time involved in doing the tank, so really it's something that I need to resolve pretty quickly. Could this be a thing that stops this being done in the 5 weeks? It really could at this stage, but let's not dwell on that too much. We've got to push forward with other things and work on this in the background and just see what we can do. There is a resolution. It's not game over. It's just something that might be a little bit time consuming.